Welcome to Engage Math, Lesson 15, Problem 4, where we are simplifying expressions with exponents, and we only want our final answers to have positive exponents. So let's get started zooming in so you can see the problem really clearly. When we are multiplying two expressions or two factors with the same base, in this case, the base for each one is t, all we have to do is to add the exponents. So we keep the base as t, and we say -7 plus 6 is -1. But remember, we don't want negative exponents. So now we have to think about the rule that an exponent can be changed to a different sign by putting it over the fraction line. So I'm going to move t to the -1 to the denominator and make it t to the +1. But I need something in the numerator to hold the place. So we put a 1 there so that 1 over t to the first is the same thing as t to the -1. By the way, you don't really need that exponent of 1. So you could just say 1 over t as your final answer. Okay, let's move on to B. All right, so here we're going to really multiply 5 times 3, just like we always have, 15. Then we add the exponents like we did in the previous problem. So we have g to the -6. And like the previous problem, something with a negative exponent goes over the fraction line and becomes a positive exponent. So that becomes g to the 6th. The 15 is not to a negative exponent, so that stays in the numerator. And our final answer is 15 over g to the 6th. Okay, so now I'm going to look at C. We're going to zoom in again at C. And in this case, when I see that negative exponent, what I'm thinking is, why don't we take the entire quantity that's being raised to the negative exponent, which is -6 x to the 9th, and let's make it all raised to the +2, which we can do because I put it on the other side of the fraction line. And now we can simply simplify that as 1 over -6 to the second is 36, and it's a positive because a -6 times a -6 is a positive 36. 9 times 2, we multiply the exponents here, and 9 times 2 is 18. So our final answer is 1 over 36, x to the 18th. Let's move on to problem D. All right, so now when we look at D, what we're really saying here is 4 over 8 reduces to 1 over 2 like it always has. That doesn't have anything to do with the new work we're doing with exponents. You've known how to reduce 4/8 for a long time. Now, the negative exponent, remember the exponents are changed. The sign of the exponent is changed when you put things over the fraction line. So we now have 1, let's make sure you know that's a 1, x to the 8th over 2x squared. So the 4 over 8 became 1 over 2. The x to the 8th over x squared is just what we did in order to get the exponents to be positive. And now we subtract 8 minus 2. So we subtract those exponents and we get x to the 6th in the numerator and just a 2 in the denominator. Okay, we don't need to write the 1 next to the x to the 6th because it's implied. All right, let's go to our 2 light bulb problems. I don't think E is that challenging compared to F. So let's start with E. So the first thing I'm going to do is what we've been doing all day today. We're going to take the quantity that's raised to a negative exponent and put it on the other side of the fraction line. So we have 3v to the 4th to the +1 times 2v to the 10th. Okay, so that 3v to the 4th can be raised to a +1 again because we moved it over the fraction line. So now we have only a 1 in the numerator, and in the denominator, all of this raised to a 1 doesn't really, it's not affected by raising it to the first power. So we have 6v to the 14th in the denominator, and we are done, ready to roll. Okay, let's go to F. F is a little bit challenging, so I'm going to leave lots of space here for us. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite that entire problem, this entire division problem, as a keep, change, flip, where we keep the first fraction. I haven't changed anything in that first fraction. Then we change it to multiplication, and we take the reciprocal of the second fraction. Oftentimes it's referred to as keep, change, flip is a good way to remember how to divide with fractions. Okay, so we've kept the first fraction, changed the multiplication, and then we took the reciprocal. Now what we're going to do is anything to the negative exponent, I'm going to rewrite by putting it on the other side of the fraction line. So in this first fraction, I'm going to keep a 1 in the numerator, but I'm going to move the 2c to the denominator and change that -3 to a +3. And I'm going to just use parentheses to indicate multiplication, that is then going to have to multiply -2. And then we're going to leave the 3 in the numerator because 3 is being raised to a +1 power. But I'm going to move the n to the -1 down to the denominator and make it n to the +1 times 4. I don't need that c to the 0 because c to the 0 is just 1, so I'm not even going to write it. Okay, so now we have our next step, and I'm going to just move up a little bit more again. So we now have 1 over 2 to the third, because it means 2 times 2 times 2 is 8c to the third times -2 times 3 over 4n. Okay, so in the numerator, we have a 3. In the denominator, we have an 8 times a -2 is -16 times 4 is -64 c to the third n. And we're done. Thanks for joining us today at Engage Math. Before you sign off, I'm just going to zoom back in though, just so you can see all the answers together if you want to check any of your answers at once. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.